If you've tried growing broccoli and not been successful, then you're going to want to watch this video, because I have been in your shoes. I've been trying to grow broccoli for years. I've been gardening for years in lots of different climates, from the hot climate of Houston, Texas, to the cold climate of Chicago, Illinois, and now I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. So you may have heard the rumors that broccoli really only grows in the United States. In California, that's the place where over 90% of the broccoli that we buy from the grocery store is shipped from. No matter where you live in the U.S., almost all the broccoli that we eat in this country from the grocery is grown in California. Now, I've tried my hand at growing broccoli myself, and I've also tried growing it in lots of clients' gardens. In my clients' gardens in Houston, and then in my own garden in Chicago, and here in Nashville. And time after time, I've had challenges with broccoli growing to a full, nice size head that is not going to flower. Now, if you've experienced the same thing, let me tell you the scenario that happens for me. So I plant broccoli early spring. As soon as the soil can be worked, I'll put a seedling into the ground, and it'll start to grow and take up space in the raised bed. I'll start to get these beautiful leaves, and it'll keep going and going. And then we start to hit the middle to the end of springtime. And then we start to have these higher temperatures where summer starts to creep in and the temps start to get over 85, 80, 85 degrees during the day. The broccoli head will have just begun to form right around day 65, 70, 75. And then when those temps start to go higher, when we start to have those days of 80 or 85, all the little broccoli florets, not all of them, but some of them start to turn yellow and begin to show that they're going to flower. And then within just a few days, I end up with these lovely broccoli flowers, but never a broccoli head until now. So the difference that I tried this year is using broccoli, planting broccoli in the late summer instead of the early spring. So I actually grew some broccoli in the spring, and the same story, same song, same story happened this year, where it looked promising, and then suddenly looked disappointing. But I decided to try my hand one more time this fall, and I used these potato barrels. So I set up these whiskey barrels in the spring and grew potatoes from March all the way until July and August. I pulled up the potatoes in the middle of the summer, and then at the beginning, middle of August, I took them out, harvested them, added some mushroom compost to the planters, and then planted one broccoli seedling per whiskey barrel. And here we are about 3 months later, and this is what we got. So here are some of the lessons that I've learned from growing broccoli that hopefully will help you have success too. So number one, broccoli really needs at least 90 days where the temps are not pushing and over 85 degrees. So it needs to start when the soil is workable, when the temps are ranging between, say, it can be low, like even in the 40s, but the temps don't need to be over 80. And then they really want, especially once they're okay and they can make it on their own, if the temps are high when they're producing leaves. But when it's time for the head to be formed, that's the most critical part. The temperatures, the high temperatures, do not need to be pushing over 80. So if you have a really long spring where you can get your plants in when the soil is workable, and you've got a good stretch of 90 days before the temps are going to bust ahead of 80, 85 degrees, then you're safe. And for most of the country, I don't think that's the case. It is the case in parts of California where broccoli is grown, and that's why it works there so well. But when I was in Houston, our temps would always push 85 too soon, making the broccoli go to seed. And then in Chicago, we had the same case where our springs were really slow to get started, but then summer would come really quickly in June and July, again causing the florets to pop and to go to seed. In this case, with planting this in the fall rather than in the spring, I've ended up with this super healthy plant. We have a little bit of pest pressure here. You can see some holes from caterpillars, and you can see some little caterpillar eggs underneath the leaves. But for the most part, the leaves are really nice and healthy, very few signs of pest issues. And then this head that has just been so strong and sturdy and steady in its growth and is now ready to harvest. It could probably keep growing for a little bit longer, but I'm going to go ahead and enjoy it while I can. So lesson learned is to grow fall broccoli and not spring. From the 3 climates I've been in, Chicago, Houston, and Nashville, I found that summer comes too soon. And so instead of trying to push my luck in the spring, I'm now just going to grow broccoli in the fall. So if you've had trouble growing your own broccoli and you've had this same issue with broccoli going to flower too soon, then I highly recommend pushing it to the fall instead of trying to do it in the spring. The way to make this happen would be to start broccoli from seed indoors around June or beginning of July. Really, you want to do it probably about 5 months before your first frost would be the timing, maybe even 4 months before your first frost. So get the seedling nice and grown with over about 4 to 5 weeks. Plant out the seedling when you are about, let's see, that would be September, about 60 or so days before your first frost. And then put it in 60 days before your first frost. It's going to get nice and established, start growing, get lots of great leaves. And then when that first frost comes, as long as the soil stays workable and you've got some cold nighttime temps, but the days warm up, then you're going to continue to get this great growth on your broccoli head. And within about 30 more days, you're going to get a nice broccoli head that you can harvest before the cold of winter sets in. So that's my new recipe. Start your seeds indoors about 90 days or 100 days before your last frost. Bring them out about 60 days before your last frost. And then first frost. Sorry, I always get those messed up because it's the end of the year, but it's the first frost. Plant it out, and then even as first frost comes, that broccoli is going to keep growing and forming. So if you live in California, you can ignore all this because growing broccoli probably comes really easy to you. But for me, I'm so proud it finally worked out, and now I know how to make it happen again and again, and now you do too. So no more spring broccoli for me. I'm growing it in the fall from now on. And I can't wait to see the harvest that you get and I get this time next year because we learned our lesson. If you want to learn how to grow broccoli and all the other plants in the kitchen garden, then you got to check out my book, Leaves, Roots, and Fruit. And if you want to learn how to set up your kitchen garden in the first place, check out my first book called Kitchen Garden Revival. Subscribe to the Gardenary channel. We're going to have loads of tips, wonderful episodes coming your way all season long. And you can go to gardenary.com to get a free gardening resource to get you growing right away. Also, you want to check out the Gardenary calendar. This is a resource that is customizable to your dates. So all you got to fill in is 2 dates in your year, and then we will do all the rest of the work to tell you every day you need to plant something in your garden in the year ahead. You can get that at gardenary.com on the homepage or gardenary.com/calendar.